Molly Grispa. This is Brenda Cranswick, and we have Lana Queen behind the camera. So these are the a description of the anthropomorphic measurements that we do for different research studies and with the athletes here at UHUO. So the circumference measurements, we measure the circumference of the right thigh, then the hip, waist, and the abdomen. So for the right thigh measurement, you measure halfway down the thigh, halfway down the length of the femur. For the hip, it's going to be where you can ask somebody where they feel their hip bones stick out the most, and you're going to measure around there. Then for the waist, you're going to measure just in between the bottom of the ribs and the top of the iliac crest. So that squishy part right there. And sometimes you can ask people to just place their hands on their hips or place their hands on their waist, and wherever they would sit, that's pretty much where you're going to measure. And then if you want, you can palpate and feel right where the iliac crest is, and you'll go just above that. For the abdominal measurement, you can ask people, it's going to be where your rib cage starts to come apart, where the ribs start to come apart to each side. It's about a finger length down from there, so just where they start to slope, you're going to measure right there. Okay, so we have the person standing with their toes on the blue line, facing the mirror. The mirror is used so you can help make sure that when you're measuring, the measuring tape is straight across both this way and then also this way, so it's not hinged one side or the other. So for the right thigh, we ask someone to raise their right leg, first of all, and this is to measure the length of the femur, so you know halfway down. We raise the leg so you can get the crease in the hip, which shows where the top of the femur would be. And you're going to go about halfway down the patella, so you don't want to go over the curve of the knee, but just in the middle there. So then you find half. I just visually look at it, you find half. Then you can tell them to stand straight. They can lower their leg, stand a little bit apart. You can either reach around if you want to keep your finger there and grab this, which I find kind of difficult. Personally, especially if someone doesn't have pants on, if they have shorts on, you can press on their skin a little bit and a mark will be left there. But if not, just visually have some of the tape already pulled out. That's the biggest thing. So then it's very easy. You can take your finger off and just keep looking exactly where your finger was, and you just reach through. So it's already out here, which gives you an idea. Your hands are probably going to be level, so then you have less chance of the tape being higher up on one side than the other. So you find when you're looking at that point, then you just take your finger off, keep an eye on it, pull it across, and then once you're there, then you can hold it or not, and you're going to look in the mirror, make sure that it's straight across this way, so both the lateral and medial side of the tape is even to one another, and so that's at the same mark. So if you see, so this is where my finger was prior. I look in here, the medial side's a little bit lower, so I'm just going to keep my eye on that part, raise it up a little bit, and now I know it's straight across. Then to make sure the anterior and posterior sides of the tape are even, you just look straight at it, so this is straight across here, and you're always measuring in centimeters, so make sure you're on the centimeter side. And then you're going to look and see where that is. You want a little bit of, you don't want it to be snug, you don't want to be pulling on them, but you also don't want it to be loose. So right when you start to feel it pull, that's how tight you want to do it. So for the hip measurement, you can ask the person if they can feel where their hip bones stick out the most in the front. And sometimes, depending on the person that you're measuring, if maybe they're a little bit on the heavier side or if they're overweight at all, and they can't feel them, you can actually ask if you can palpate and find them. If not, you can ask them to raise their leg again. So if you can't find where the hip bones are, you're not sure how low or high you are, when they raise their leg, it's going to be just about an inch and a half above that crease. So she's right there, and this is going to be the same thing. So you can ask the person to hold their fingers there as you bring the tape around. Same thing, I always have some tape already out, so it's easy to reach around and I can kind of just visually see in my peripheral that the tape is straight across, like I'm obviously not going way over here or way over here. So you look in the mirror, I line this side up with that one finger, pull it across, and you can ask them to hold it if need be too. And so then you look from the side to make sure anterior and posterior are even as well. And so you just double check, and that's fine. Sometimes what can happen is if somebody has maybe more of an excessive lordotic curve in their lower back, the lower back's curved or their butt sticks out more, then depending on the material, the measuring tape can slide up the back a little bit. So it's best to be doing this measurement with one other person because they can hold the tape in the back to make sure that it is not uneven with the front. For the waist measurement, as I said before, this is going to be just in between the bottom of the ribs and the top of the iliac crest. So that you can kind of tell people it's the squishiest part right there. So where would you set your hands on your hips? Okay. So if that's where you can see there, and then you can just kind of feel yourself. That's the top of your iliac crest. There's your ribs. So it's going to be right in between there. So where she had her hands was right. So you can ask somebody to put their hands back in their hips. Perfect. So you can have the tape out. All right. And then sometimes I just make sure on that side that that's where I want to go. And you're going to come around. That was a little bit high. And it's the same thing. You're looking in the mirror to make sure that both sides are even, and then you're looking from the side to make sure anterior and posterior sides are even. And this measurement will change a little bit as somebody breathes. Same thing, you want to have about the same amount of tension. Tell somebody to breathe normally. And so if they breathe in and out, normally doesn't shift more than 1/2 of a centimeter to a centimeter. So you just hold it there for a full inhale, exhale, and you're going to take the middle of wherever it shifted to. Okay, so the last measurement is the abdominal measurement. This one can be kind of tricky. Sometimes people don't really know where on the rib cage you're talking about. So sometimes I tell people to just find where their ribs come together at the top. And so it'll be about a finger length down. And same thing, if you feel like you can palpate, then you can see I can feel right there, I can just see where her rib cage comes together, that it comes together about here, her ribs slope down, I can feel that right there, that's where you're going to be measuring. As you come around, same thing, take the tape out, look in the mirror, and line it up here with that finger. That's what I'm looking at in the mirror, is I make sure that's even, so that's stuck, and then it should be able to come straight around and that side doesn't move if you have enough tension on it. So you come around, same thing, tell somebody to breathe normally, this one can change a little bit too. And then looking at it now, you can kind of see where her rib cage is. I feel like I'm a little bit low, so just visually, I'm going to come back up to there. And so you tell them to breathe normally, so she's going from about 68.2 centimeters down to 69.5, so I'd probably go about 68.7. So you're just going to go in between those two measurements. And that's how you do the anthropomorphic circumference measurements for research studies at UH-UVA.